therapist Kristen Jacobson.
Hey everyone, I'm Kristen, the anxiety therapist, and today I want to talk about why you keep feeling overwhelmed and discuss something called the window of tolerance. So if you've ever noticed how sometimes you feel like you can handle stress no problem, but other times even the smallest thing can really send you over the edge. And it's not just about how much coffee you've had that day or how busy your schedule is. It actually has a lot to do with something called the window of tolerance. And this is a concept that explains how we manage stress and emotions. And it's essentially the zone within which we can function optimally, think clearly, and stay emotionally balanced even when life gets really challenging. But when we step outside of that window, that's when things start to go haywire. Either we feel really overstimulated, overwhelmed, and anxious, or we sort of shut down entirely, go numb, we sort of check out. So I want to dive into the science behind the window of tolerance and explore why it's so important to understand. So what is the window of tolerance? At its core, the window of tolerance refers to the range of what we call arousal states that we can handle before becoming emotionally dysregulated. And arousal just means, what our nervous system can handle. So imagine it like a comfort zone for your nervous system. When you're inside this window, you're able to stay calm, think logically, and manage your emotions without being too overwhelmed. But when stress or trauma or other triggers push you outside of that window, then your ability to regulate emotions starts to fall apart. So this concept comes from the work of Dr. Dan Siegel. I would highly recommend reading some of his books, especially if you're a parent. Great guy. He has used it to explain how trauma and stress affect our nervous system. So when you're outside your window of tolerance, you enter one of two extremes. We have hyperarousal, and this is when your nervous system goes into overdrive. So you might feel anxious, irritable, or panicky. Your thoughts are racing. You can't seem to calm down. Your body is in this sort of fight or flight state. And then on the other end, you go into this hyperarousal state. So your nervous system sort of shuts down. So you might feel disconnected, numbed out, unable to take action. It's sort of like being in this freeze or paralyzed state where your brain sort of tells your body to play dead because it just feels so overwhelmed. So why do we step outside this window? The size of your window is very personal and it's shaped by many factors. So this can include your early childhood, your history of, significant or impactful experiences that you've had, and even how you manage stress on a daily basis. So let's take a look at actually what's going on inside your body. So our nervous system has two main branches that control how we respond to stress. We have the sympathetic nervous system, the SNS, and the parasympathetic nervous system, the PNS. So the SNS is responsible for that fight or flight response. It gives us that burst of energy we need to deal with threats. So this is what would cause us to spring into action if we were being robbed at gunpoint in a dark alley, right? So it's necessary for survival. It's not a bad thing, but sometimes it goes into overdrive when we experience perceived emotional threats as well. The PNS is like the brake. So this is calming us down and it helps us recover after the stress passes. So when our window of tolerance is wide, our nervous system can smoothly shift between these two states without getting stuck in either hyperarousal or hypoarousal. But if your window of tolerance is really narrow, and this occurs if you've had trauma in your past or chronic stress or significant emotional challenges, then you're more likely to get thrown off balance. And instead of handling this stress well, you're quickly going to jump into that either fight or flight state or that complete shutdown and check out state. So let's talk about some signs that you're outside of your window of tolerance. It's important to recognize when you've sort of stepped outside of your window because it allows you to take steps to get back into balance. So here's how you might feel if you're dysregulated. If you're in hyperarousal, you might experience a racing heart, shallow breathing, muscle tension, sweating, restlessness, irritability, difficulty concentrating, anxiety, anger, and just feeling constantly on edge. If you're in that hypoarousal state, then you're going to feel emotionally numb, maybe a little disoriented or foggy. You're going to be sort of disconnected from your surroundings, lethargic, unmotivated, sort of checked out or shut down. So both of these states can make it really hard to function in daily life, right? Let alone make bigger decisions or engage in healthy relationships. So the key is learning how to expand your window of tolerance so that you can handle stress without becoming dysregulated and going into one of those states. So I want to share some ways to stay inside your window of tolerance. And the good news is that you can widen your window of tolerance, but this involves training your nervous system to stay more balanced even when stress shows up. So just like you might go to the gym to build muscle and get stronger and build those muscles, you're going to need to practice consistency with these techniques in order to train your nervous system. So the first is mindfulness and grounding techniques. Mindfulness really helps increase awareness of your emotional and physical state, allowing you to catch when you're moving outside your window. So practices like deep breathing or progressive muscle relaxation and other grounding exercises can help calm your nervous system when you're overstimulated. Because these strategies actually activate the PNS, the parasympathetic nervous system, which pulls you back into your window. So I would go ahead and type some of these keywords into YouTube and you'll have tons of options to choose from, and they will be sort of guided practices that you can try out and see what fits. Everybody has different preferences in terms of what they like to do. Number 2 is therapy. So specific types of therapies like somatic experiencing, they work directly with the nervous system to widen your window of tolerance. So this is different than talk therapy, which is what most people think of when they think of seeing a therapist. And by helping you process some of, maybe you have some unresolved trauma or other things that get stored in the body, these therapies actually teach your body how to better handle stress without becoming dysregulated. 3 is physical exercise. So physical movement, especially aerobic exercise, can really improve your ability to regulate stress by activating the part of your brain that's in charge of emotional regulation, and that's the prefrontal cortex. So regular exercise is going to strengthen the connection between your brain and body, which gives you more control over your responses to stress. It also releases endorphins, which are those natural mood boosters, in addition to releasing cortisol and adrenaline, which are those pesky stress hormones. And finally, sleep and nutrition. So we really tend to forget how much just basic self-care impacts our nervous system. But sleep and nutrition are really essential for maintaining a healthy window of tolerance. Sleep deprivation and poor nutrition can really make you more sensitive to stress, which shrinks your window. And so making sure you're getting enough rest, at least, 7 to 9 hours a night, and fueling your body with those nutrient-dense foods, that's just going to be so important. It sounds so simplistic, but so many people undervalue and deprioritize these things. And it's really not until you experience the benefits of what you're missing out on that it truly sinks in how important these things are. So before I wrap up, I just want to share a personal story of how I stepped outside of my window of tolerance. This actually happened just last night. So I haven't shared this with a lot of people yet, and I'm going to sort of make a more formal announcement later on. But I'm in the process of writing a book, and it is due to my editor on Friday. So kind of freaking out a little bit because I still have a lot to do. So my days have pretty much been spent, working all day, picking the kids up from school, making and eating dinner, putting the kids to bed, and then spending the rest of my evening editing my manuscript. So very stressful days. So last night I was just like, after I picked the kids up, it was like my body just shut down. And I told my husband, it was like 5:30, and I was like, I swear I could probably go to sleep right now and sleep for the rest of the night. And I was definitely in that hypoarousal state. And I just like gave him a hug and started crying. And I was definitely outside of my window of tolerance. And, I try to do most of those things that I suggested to you guys. I get regular exercise, I get plenty of sleep, I try to eat healthy, all of those things. But sometimes if there are additional stressors, we shift into one of those states. And luckily I was able to bounce back pretty quickly because I do those other things on a regular basis. But it's just an example of how we can quickly get outside or step outside of that window of tolerance. And so it's really important to engage in those other healthy behaviors consistently so that if we do step outside, we can come back in more quickly, and the chances of us stepping outside in the first place are a lot lower. So just to wrap up, understanding your window of tolerance can really help you manage stress and emotional challenges more effectively. It's really not about eliminating stress altogether because that's just impossible, but about learning how to stay within your optimal zone. And by practicing mindfulness, seeking therapy if you need it, staying physically active, taking care of your body, you can really widen your window of tolerance and improve your ability to handle whatever curveballs life sends you. So now that you know what the window of tolerance is and why it matters, you can really start paying attention to your emotional and physical responses throughout the day. And the more you learn about your own stress thresholds, the better equipped you'll be to stay within your window. So I hope you found this helpful. I would love to hear about your own experiences stepping outside your window with either hyperarousal or hypoarousal, because we've all been there. So yeah, leave a comment, or if you have a question, feel free to drop that in the comment section as well. I'll talk to you next week.